In the 1950s, all prospective students had to go to Wellington to be interviewed by Miss McGrath, who was the secretary of the physiotherapy board at that time. Now, Miss McGrath was a formidable figure in stature and in her intellect. She was a very intelligent lady, and she asked all sorts of questions of one. And the first was, why do you want to do physiotherapy? And I said I didn't have enough marks or wasn't good enough to get into med school. But I was quite optimistic about getting into some form of health profession. And I was very late in applying, and my application was rejected initially. Out of the blue, I got this message to come and see Miss McGrath because someone had dropped out, and there was room for one more student. So I go down to see Miss McGrath, and here's this very imposing figure. She was very tall, and she was also very bulky, and she spoke very clearly, and she wasn't a lady that you would cross. Anyway, Miss McGrath formed a favourable opinion, and I was recommended to become the last entrant. So on the due date, and I think it was the late February in 1950, I went down to Dunedin and started the process. The principal was Miss Gotts, very tall, very elegant, and not an unattractive lady. She had wonderful posture, and if you were caught slouching around the department, you'd get a rocket from the other end of the corridor. Mr. McKenzie, she would say, stand up straight. You're setting a bad example to the patients. So Miss Gotts was the principal, and there was Gwen Hislop was the tutor in remedial exercises, and she used to teach us massage and SRE, as they called it, Swedish remedial exercise. And although I didn't see any resemblance to therapy and Swedish remedial exercises, there was a good basis to the whole idea, but I didn't appreciate it at the time. The school days were good. We had lessons, and we had the tutorials in the dissection room, and we had we had real corpses to dissect. We were very apprehensive when we went in to start with, going into the dissection room and seeing all these bodies lying there. Some of them didn't take to it at all well. Others, after a while, got so blasé they were throwing dissected feet around the dissection room when the head man wasn't there. But they were good days in Dunedin. We had good social life, and I was not a good diligent student. I went through with Dickie Dow, Hugh Bramwell, Bill Richards and Craig Cameron. I flattered with Hugh Bramwell. He'd passed through Auckland Grammar, or one of the Auckland Takapuna Grammar or something, with flying colours. He studied hard, and he passed his university entrance with high marks and everything. And when he came to Dunedin, he applied himself studiously. He'd come to the pub occasionally, but more often than not, I'd come home, and here he's immersed in all recapping the day's work, the lectures. And with about 6 weeks to go before the initial exams, in those days we had to, I think at the end of 6 months, we had an examination, which if you didn't pass, you had to repeat. And with just 3 or 4 weeks to go before the 6 months exam, I realised that Bramwell knew everything. He knew everything. He'd be asked, what about this, what's the function of latissimus dorsi? What's the function of extensor hallucis longus? All this stuff. He was answering these questions. I wonder what it is, I better go and check. Well, I applied myself sufficiently to scrape through. I didn't sail very easily, but I was accepted for the continuation in the second year. Bramwell continued to excel, and he carried on right through to the end of the course, and I had to go through the same agonies with the final exams. Anyway, I eventually passed. We had some interesting experiences. The 5 of us shared a little, very small room, no bigger than the average bathroom. 5 of us in this first year. but shared it with 3 others who were in their second year. We all had a locker of sorts to ourselves, keep our skeletons and our books and stuff in. And there was one toilet in the middle of this. It was separated, you know, you weren't open to view, but it had no roof, no ceiling over it, so the ceiling was open to the room. And it was a fiendishly cunning plan sometimes to go in, lock the door, and climb back out over the top. Someone's busting to go to the loo, and you can't get in because someone's locked the door and scarpered. So you have to climb over to get in. Anyway, on this particular day, I needed to go quite urgently to the toilet, and it was locked. And I knew Bramwell had gone in a little while before me. I didn't see him come out. He did come out. I didn't see him come out. But I, come on, Bramwell, I know you're in here. Open the door. Come on, get out. Hurry up. I can't wait all day. No answer. I know you're in there, Hugh. Nothing. To hell with him. So I picked up a chair and I pushed it just over the top. It smashed the toilet. Hugh had scarpered long ago. McKenzie, Miss Scotts wants to see you. Hello, Miss Scotts. Good morning, Miss Scotts. What's all this about the smashing the men's toilet? I lamely explained the situation. As you mean you'll never grow up? You'll never grow up. We won't charge you for it, but if there's any more breakages like this, you'll have to pay for yourself. You'll have to pay for it. But Bramwell never did it again. But that was one of the amusing things about our common room, as they called it. No, the men's common room. The equipment that we were taught to use was galvanic baths, sinusoidal baths, phoretic treatments, make the muscles contract, testing muscle function with galvanism because the direct current stimulated only if the nerve supply was intact, and I think that's the way it was. And Faradism contracted the muscle anyway without the nerve. So all those historic appliances, we taught all of those. We taught ultraviolet could cure almost any skin disease. Particularly were we applying a thing called a chromire ultraviolet lamp for psoriasis. I didn't see anyone ever get better from it. As a matter of fact, I didn't see many people get better from anything that we did. However, there was one thing that, one experience I had that made me go right off any form of physiotherapy other than musculoskeletal. We used to have sessions in the outpatients department, and we were seconded to the hospital wards. And in those days, a lot of thoracic surgery was done because tuberculosis was still rife in the community. And they used to perform lobectomies and thoracoplasties, and they would collapse the lungs, and they'd remove lobes and sometimes the whole lung. And this lady, I suppose now with historically, the name doesn't matter, but I'll never forget her name, Miss Hazelden. And Miss Hazelden had had a lung removed, and she had this incision from the top of the right scapula, right down the side of the scapula, right down almost to the 12th rib. She had this incision there. And I was giving it breathing exercises. And one day I noticed that the whole area was wet, and it was suppurating, this wound, from top to bottom. So I told the sort of totally unexpected and totally foreign experience for me. So I went out to the nurse and said to the nurse, Miss Hazelden's wound's wide open, it's suppurating. And she says, oh yes, we know. She says, it'll be right though, it'll be right. And I says, I don't feel like putting this lady through these breathing exercises because it's unpleasant for her. And this is very intimidating for me to see this wound. Every time she breathes in, the whole wound opens up. And this is terrible, can't something be done? She says, yes, something has been done, don't worry, just carry on. I went back the next day, or I think we had to go in every day, even weekends we had to go and see these patients. I went back the next day and it was no better, nothing had been done, the dressing had been changed, but she hadn't been sewn up. And then I think I had some time off, a couple of days off, and when I went back, the bed was empty and there was someone else, and the bed was empty, there's someone else sitting alongside it. And I said to the nurse, what's happened to Miss Hazelden? And Miss Hazelden had passed away in my absence. And I thought, tuberculosis, boy, that's bad. You don't want to get tuberculosis. And you don't want to have surgery either. And I thought, well, I don't want to go to any chronic hospital when I get out of here. I don't mind working in outpatient seeing musculoskeletal disorders, which are usually non-fatal. That's what I went through my mind at the time. I've never forgotten that, Miss Hazelden. But anyway, it had an impact on me, the way I thought about patients and then